Unfortunately, I don't have this all memorized, so I'm going to be reading a lot. Please don't hold that against me. Thank you. Okay, so hello, and thank you for joining me here today. My name is Barry Belmont, and I guess I'm the president of the club, UNR Students for Liberty. I'd actually like to thank my dad right now for coming. He actually came all the way up from Las Vegas, so and he's here for me. He listens to all this drivel all the time. So thank you. Through events such as our infamous Nobody 08 campaign, our Recycling Hurts the Environment Day, the whole START business, which lit a fire under our good-for-nothing jokes of student senators, are bringing two world-renowned economists on campus to lecture our excruciatingly fun bi-weekly meetings and are currently nominated for Best Undergraduate Blog, which can be seen at unrforliberty.com. We have sought to promote liberty and freedom as best we can. We're a relatively new club, but a totally active and totally awesome one. And we actually have another speaker coming on campus on April 2nd from the Goldwater Institute named Nick Dranius, and he'll be talking about the top 10 ways to effectively increase liberty at the local level. We are going to participate in diversity work where we'll expound the pluralism of capitalism, as well as the implicit racism in diversity awareness. And then we have 3 more meetings which will discuss right-wing politics, left-wing politics, and we'll address critical thinking skills. Today's lecture is about anarcho-capitalism, and try as I might, I could not make it 30 minutes, so it's going to be on the hour side. But this isn't an episode of Dharma and Greg. This is going to be an important lecture that hopefully will mean something to somebody. And a discussion will follow in which you can ask more specific questions, and I'll try to answer them as best I can. And for the people who ask either the most insightful questions, or the most original ones, or something I've never thought of, there are 2 books that I'm offering as prizes. One's Henry Hazlitt's Economics in One Lesson. Come on, find a seat. And the other is The Market Economy, a Reader. This is actually the second part of a lecture I gave 6 months ago. And this one will focus mostly on what people seem to be concerned with in an anarcho-capitalist society. One, how a legal system could possibly form under the lawlessness of anarchy. And supposing a legal system could somehow work, how could an effective defense system for that legal system develop without turning into a protection racket and eventually into another state? So clearly I have my work cut out for me. Before we dive into this, there are a few housekeeping details we must agree to. We must define our terms. These are anarchy, capitalism, the market, the state, economic and political means, and trickiest of all, how we will view the nature of humans. Anarchy. The term has meant many things to many people over the years. Its original intent probably meant something along the lines of no authority whatsoever, meaning no government, no hierarchy, no laws, no order, no managers, no bosses, no rulers, no rules, no schools, no tools, no market, no private property, no nothing. Anarchy has mostly been seen as a very negative and defeatist position, embodied mostly by nihilistic, raging adolescents sporting bad hairdos. I can use this pointer. For this lecture, we're simply going to take our definition of anarchy to mean no state. I'll explain what state means a little bit. Capitalism is the idea, also has a fairly checkered past. However, for our present purposes, and I believe in line with its true overall definition, it'll mean that individuals must interact with each other voluntarily. This means that exchanges, trades, payments, and even charity will be done voluntarily. This interaction does not mean that 2 people are not necessarily trying to get the better of each other. In fact, this is very likely the case. Both people must think they are getting a better deal of the trade, otherwise the exchange wouldn't occur. For instance, if I have a pen and you have a book, and if I say, hey, I'll trade you my pen for your book, and if you value my pen over your book and I value your book over my pen, the exchange will occur. And that's capitalism. With capitalism, all parties benefit, at least in the ex ante sense, which means beforehand. I mean, they may regret their decision after the fact, but it doesn't concern us with here. Making all voluntary actions the work of fat capitalist pigs. Thus, exploitation has no real meaning in this context. Exploitation, so far as I know, means that one person is taking unfair advantage of another. But if all parties involved in an exchange agree to the terms voluntarily, I don't see how this is possible. Oh, I guess I'm not done with that. With all this capital, where all this capitalism takes place is in an imperial landscape known as the free market. It is my contention that all markets must be free markets, otherwise they simply aren't markets. If this doesn't jive with you, what you think of as a market, try to bear with this definition for at least the remainder of this lecture. On the market, there must be nothing but free, voluntary interactions, or capitalism. If someone decides to take unfair advantage of another, it is by using political means, which we'll get into, wherein coercion is used to exploit someone legitimately. Coercion here is taken to mean the use or threat of use of physical force to make someone do something. This is different from persuasion, which is simply tempting someone to do something. If I point a gun at you, it's coercion. If I wave money under your nose, it's persuasion. And obviously there's some gray area as to what the actual difference is in every case. And I'm sure some interesting what-if scenarios are already brewing in your minds. But this is a continuum issue and not a matter of actual difference. Since a free market consists of only voluntary interactions, they are thus only free insofar as they lack coercion. That is, they lack individuals to use political means. Therefore, it can rightly be said that markets are free insofar only as much as they lack a government. The state. This is what all the hubbub is about. Because I can think of no more concise and precise definition than provided by my man and yours, Murray Rothbard. I'll take his definition as the state as that institution which possesses one or both, almost always both, of the following properties. It acquires its income by the fiscal coercion known as taxation, and it asserts and usually obtains a coerced monopoly of the provision of defense services, police and courts, over a given territorial area. If an institution lacks both of these properties, it's not a state, by my definition. And when it comes to the means of attainment, there are two distinct classes. There's economic means and political means. By economic means, we mean all those available to a person on a free market. This means that labor, talent, receiving gifts, i.e. all voluntary interactions, all voluntary means are exclusively economic. Means in which coercion or the threat of coercion is used to obtain something, for our case, are known as political means. They are called political because they can only be legitimized through a state. Think back to our definition of the market. Without being forced to exist by state, no market can tolerate coercion, and this will be brought up later. For most people, it is the threat of force that causes them to accept force. Imagine yourself with a knife to your throat. I'm sure you'd gladly give up your wallet or your purse in that case. If someone tried this on the free market, they would be punished because all initiations of coercion are illegitimate regardless of their intent. What are politicians if not well-intentioned thieves and crooks, taking from some and giving to others? Yeah. Human nature. This is a complex issue which I will shamelessly boil down in about a minute or two. So clearly, for this discussion, it will not be as nuanced as it should be. Yes, people are complicated and their nature is very flexible, but for the purposes of this discussion, we will focus only on one part, whether human nature allows for this system to exist. First, we must recognize that human nature has been molded through our species' years of evolution. Modern Homo sapiens developed roughly 200,000 years ago in Africa, and only very recently moved into anything close to what we would consider civilization, approximately 10,000 years ago with the agricultural revolution. This means that for 95% of their existence, modern humans existed exclusively in small tribes which consisted mostly of family members and best friends. Our brains grew up and were developed to understand this way of life, and all interpretations of human nature must take this into account. That being the case, I maintain that most people are good in the sense that most people, most of the time, in most situations, would do what is considered by most around them to be good. This is a fairly intuitive concept. This implies that people are more apt to cooperate, which anthropological and psychological evidence bears out. Consider, if you did not share your food when you had access with your family, or family and friends in your ancestral environment, and then the next time they had excess food, they might not share with you. This is the classic tit-for-tat strategy, a variation of which can be recognized as the golden rule, do unto others as you would have to unto them, seen in every culture on earth. This is why it is so crucial to remember the mean people you seek, so that your tit can match their tat at some future date. Because this cooperation is so omnipresent in society, it's often hard to see. Right now, Right now,